The affair of my cheating wife thought he was tough, but he cried and begged me to stop hitting him. Sometimes it's better to start looking at someone's background before you get them into your life. I mean, they say intimacy is the most powerful thing that is shared by two people who love each other. So when someone shares their body with their partner, then they go outside their relationship and share their body and soul with another person. I don't understand it. So I, male 35, met my gorgeous wife, female 28, in Starbucks. She worked there. When I met her, I was late for work. I wanted a latte to go to start my busy morning. I walked in there and she was minding her own business, not taking care of her customers. I called out for her to get assistance as I was standing for almost 5 minutes not being assisted. Then she started speaking. Her voice was so calm and sweet, she explained herself and told me she was new there. We dated for 2 years and then I proposed to her. I couldn't wait any longer to make her my wife. She was what and who I needed in my life. So we decided to tie the knot 2 months after I had proposed to her. We moved to a lovely neighborhood in Hollywood after I had proposed to her. I wanted her to be a housewife. I mean, I was afforded and I was providing everything for her, so she didn't need to work at Starbucks anymore because I was already taking care of her in every way possible. As much as she had agreed to become a housewife, she asked me to allow her to start her own business that she was going to run at home. I didn't have any problem with that. She wanted to start an online boutique, so I supported her in her dreams. A year into our marriage, my life changed. I was always busy, but when I got time, I would spend it with my wife. She understood that I was a busy guy, and that was what I loved the most about her. As much as she stayed home all day, she knew how to keep herself busy. She would do workouts in the morning and yoga afterwards before she starts her day. We would never have serious arguments nor fight, but we would argue about small things like decision-making. I mean, I was the man of the house. My marriage has been good ever since we moved to this neighborhood on the north side of Hollywood. My neighbors were kind people and very humble, especially my next-door neighbor. I found out that he owned a gym that is around our neighborhood and his wife is a book writer. They were the ones who welcomed us when we first moved in, and that was how we got along. We grew to be good friends. My neighbor was the one who introduced us to other neighbors. We would have a neighborhood gathering twice a week called Wine Wednesday since I was always busy. I was always late, but my wife was always there. My neighbor was the one who hosted the gathering, so it was hard to say no. Sometimes I would not feel like it, but I had to show up for my wife's sake. As much as my neighbor and I were friends, well, that was what I thought. I had noticed that he had been a little close to my wife. I mean, I was not jealous or anything. Like I said, we grew to be good friends. They would work out at his gym and do yoga together. I thought that was the main reason why they were close. He also had a wife who was young and beautiful, but my wife was a dime, I had to say. He once came to fix my kitchen sink since it was leaking and I wasn't around, so my wife asked him to fix it. I got angry and asked her why she didn't call the plumber. She told me that I was overreacting and that the neighbor's wife was at the house, so she told her that the kitchen sink was leaking, meaning she was the one who asked her husband to fix it for us. She even told me that they were being friendly and helpful since I was always busy. Yeah, right, something wasn't right. The tone of her voice sounded like she was rehearsing to say this the whole day. I just collected myself and told her that next she should call the plumber. Was I exaggerating about this whole thing? Ever since that day, our relationship hasn't been the same, and I wondered why. We would talk and spend some time together like we would do, but that time something was different, I felt. I'm a man that has a good instinct, and I believed and trusted in my instincts, so if my conscious instinct told me that something was wrong, there was definitely something wrong. All of a sudden, she started buying new clothes and a new set of perfumes. She changed a lot to a point that every Wine Wednesday she would be wearing a different outfit dressed to impress with a red lipstick. I addressed the issue trying to trap her in a conversation, but she said she was trying something new since she was always home. I trusted her. I knew she wouldn't do me dirty. If I had a day off, I would go to the gym and work out with them, but every time when I joined them, it would get awkward. I got promoted at my job and I was made senior partner because of my work ethics. New position means a new schedule of back-to-back meetings, and also I started arriving late at home. I no longer went to the gathering like before as I was caught up at work. My life transformed and took another trajectory. My wife and I started to argue more often because I would sometimes not keep promises because I would forget. She no longer understood my work and she started being paranoid, suspecting me of cheating on her at work. I mean, I loved my wife very much to even think of that. Work was keeping me on my feet, so where would I have got time to cheat? I respected my job, my wife, and my colleagues, which was why I had never even shared a hug with them. I was always professional when it came to my job. That's when I started suspecting that my wife might be cheating on me. The sudden change I felt like I was being compared to. Well, time went by and I started to realize my wife was always on her phone, like she was waiting for someone to text back. Also, she started to work out twice a day in the morning and afternoon, which raised my suspicions. She then changed her diet, but she hasn't stopped dressing to impress. I wondered why the sudden change because I had never complained about her weight or dressing code. Something was definitely going on. Was I also getting paranoid? Another thing I once caught was my neighbor staring at her. Well, she didn't notice that the neighbor was staring at her, but I ignored it. So one day I saw them talking to each other, but what caught my attention was their eye contact. I guess my wife didn't see me coming until she heard the neighbor greeting me. She got shocked and kind of panicked. Why would she be shocked and panicking if there was nothing going on between them? I then knew that I had to be a gentleman and not jump into drastic conclusions, meaning I had to address the issue in a right manner. So I did what every man who loved his wife would do. I told her that she should stop going to Wine Wednesday, which led to a very huge argument. I also wanted to cancel going to the neighbor's gym, but I didn't want to be seen as controlling, and I sensed that something was happening between those two. So I had to dig and start my own investigation to get to the bottom of everything. I mean, my guts were telling me that whatever I would find would not be good. It would have been silly if I sent a private investigator to monitor my wife's every move. So I had to play the long game so I could catch them by myself. So I started arriving home at different times. Some days I would just park 5 houses away from my house just to see who was visiting my wife. I was desperate and needed answers, but to my surprise I got nothing, meaning she played it safe around the neighborhood. I still had doubts. I knew something was up, so I decided to go to the gym one afternoon, and to my surprise my wife wasn't there, including my neighbor. So I rushed home and she wasn't there either. My mind started puzzling up as I was trying to figure out her whereabouts. I tried calling her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. That raised the suspicions that I had already had. It really made me angry that my wife would actually betray me like that. I mean, I trusted her. Yes, I was no longer giving her enough time and attention because of work, but that didn't mean she should get attention on another man's arms. Was I paranoid? The way my wife had changed, it made me doubt my decisions of making her my wife and moving to this neighborhood. I mean, it had been my dream to move to the north side of Hollywood, but I had never thought me moving to this side would actually change my wife. I had thought she was humble and quiet, but I had thought wrong. Another thing that I had noticed but never put my mind to was when I got home. She was no longer meeting me from my car to welcome me back home, like she would wait for me at the door and give me a kiss. She would prepare me a nice bath after work, then it would be followed by a mouth-watering dinner. I fell in love with her every day. I appreciated the way she was treating me and giving me respect as her man. But all that changed over time. In fact, it changed after attending a few Wine Wednesday gatherings. I trusted her, you know. I had thought that since she was coming from a good family with good life lessons, she would follow and take what she was taught with her. When we started getting along, she was so humble, so precious and innocent. She made me vow to myself to never hurt her fragile and innocent heart. She made me put my arrogant self aside and think like a real man. When I found Maureen, I saw that my previous lovers had nothing compared to her. Maureen was the full package of wife material. She brought the best out of me. She made me value time and give her attention she needed without even trying. One thing I appreciated and still appreciate about my ex-girlfriend was that she was never afraid to raise her concerns and had warned me so many times about my obsession with work. She told me that she was getting tired of having to wait for me every time when I had to chase the papers. She even told me her fears, expectations, and the type of man she wanted in her life. She was never afraid to tell you the truth, as it was just like Maureen, but Maureen never raised her concerns. She would just keep quiet and pretend like everything was fine when they were not. She preferred bottling things up in her chest and not sharing them with me as her partner. I know I was not a perfect husband, but I needed her to open up. Anyway, when I found out that she was not at home either, I called the neighbor's wife and asked if my wife was with her. I was getting worried even though I knew that she was up to no good. So the neighbor's wife confirmed that Maureen was not with her. Then I decided that it was time I went to the FBI on my wife, because what she was doing was against the vows she had made to me and God. And the neighbor was also breaking his wife. It was an absolute disgusting abomination. So I waited until she came back, which she came back pretty late. I knew that she was with the neighbor because when I called the wife, she told me that she had gone home to visit her family. She came back looking drunk, greeted me, and went to our bedroom suite. She didn't even look me in the eyes or offer me a kiss. It was like she was guilty of something. So I decided to check her phone, and to my surprise, she had changed her passcodes, which raised eyebrows to me because she had never changed her passcodes. I mean, she was my wife, we trusted each other, meaning there should be no secrets between us. She knew my passcodes, even my bank pins. That was how much I trusted her. So I took it upon myself to find a way to throw away her phone because it showed that she was definitely hiding something, and I was yet to find out. I prayed that it wouldn't be something that would jeopardize our relationship and break our marriage. A month passed with her behaving like a teenager, sneaking in when I was asleep and going out when I was at work. So I called the CCTV company and asked them to connect the cameras around the house and put another one outside facing the neighbor's house. I knew it was creepy of me, but I had to find out what was happening in my house when I was at work. There is a proverb that says, "What happens in the dark always finds its way to the light." So what I was doing was putting what was happening in the dark to light. Smart, right? The following day, the IT guys came and did their job. My heart and conscience was happy that I would be able to discover the truth that my wife had been hiding. Nothing stays hidden forever anyway, so it was either I find it myself or get someone else to find it for me. But because I respected my wife and our marriage, I decided to dig the truth out for myself. To tell the truth, I was not ready to find out what I had found, but I had to know what my so-called wife was hiding from me. My palms would sweat, my heart beating out of my chest as I had to check the footage every time I got home from work. One thing I was grateful for with these cameras was that I was able to even watch what was happening in my house when I was at work. My wife's behavior really made me act like an obsessed psycho or a stalker. I didn't want to awaken the arrogant animal that was in me because if I did, I would have acted rashly and end up hurting Maureen for something I had no proof of. So I got home and went to my mini office. That day I had found Maureen at home. She even prepared dinner for us, which was very surprising because I don't know when last I had eaten dinner prepared by her. In my mind, the only thing that came was that she was home because the neighbor's wife was around. That was the only explanation I could come up with. So I watched the footage and saw that that day she was bored, as she was home the whole day. At the neighbor's house, I saw that the neighbor had gone with the wife, which explained why Maureen was indoors the whole day. You would see that the conversation I was trying to make was boring her, so I decided to drop a bomb at her just to see her reaction. I told her that I was ready to start my own family, as in having children with her. She choked on her food and told me that she was not ready for a child. I didn't understand why she was not ready to have a child because she was doing nothing rather than sitting at home, checking on her online boutique than nothing else. I asked why she was not ready to give me a child. She just told me that she still had a lot to do, and that a child was the last thing on her plan book. I knew that what she was saying was a lie. It's every woman's dream to have their own family. Well, not all women's dreams, but you know what I mean. I needed an heir to continue with my legacy. I was not getting any younger, so I needed to have a child that would carry on with my property business. As much as I was working under another real estate company, under another man, I still had another backup plan for future purposes. A few weeks later, I was still checking the footage every now and then. So as I was watching it, I saw my wife going inside the neighbor's house wearing her short silk gown. I got confused on why she would go to the neighbor's house with a short silk gown early in the morning because when I checked the time, it was not even 10 in the morning. Meaning I had been gone for an hour because I used to arrive at work around 8 in the morning. What I saw made me angry. I couldn't even concentrate at work because I was busy thinking about the footage. I was disappointed in my wife. One day I decided to confront her about the issue, so I asked what she was doing at a neighbor's house at 10 in the morning whenever the neighbor's wife was not around. She just busted on me and asked if I was accusing her of something. Her voice was of a guilty person and I knew that she was really hiding something. So I asked why she was being defensive because I was asking calmly and she just got worked up for no reason. She even got angry at the fact that I was spying on her. Who wouldn't spy on a wife that suddenly changed and started degrading herself? I'd been saving the videos since I started watching them. I don't know why, but I felt like I would save them for future purposes. So as I continued following up on what was going on in my house, things didn't change, and the fact that my wife would wake up, take a bath, and go straight to the neighbor's house, either in her short silky nightdress or she would wear workout gears to make people think she was going to the gym. Have you ever regretted the day you and the person met? Yes, I regretted meeting my wife and falling in love with her. I regretted even getting her service at Starbucks. But I guess beauty and personality can be deceiving because what I would always look at when I was at work or came back from work was the total opposite of the Maureen that I had fallen in love with. She was a whole different person, the one I fell in love with. Always natural and always not afraid to embrace it, but now that the neighbor's wife was the person of class. My wife forgot who she was and started wanting what the neighbor's wife had. She even started wearing like her, all in the name of trying out new looks. Isn't that being greedy and selfish? What I lacked or didn't do that would make my wife resort to changing herself and not appreciate the life she had. Days turned to weeks and one thing was happening, but during one sunny day, my neighbor would come to my house and they would end up having heated arguments. I wished I heard what they were arguing about because it looked really extreme. So that day I got back home early and I found my wife cooking. She looked happy for someone who had an argument with her cheating partner earlier. She offered to prepare me a bath. I thought I was losing my mind or seeing things. But that went on for like a month, and the CCTV showed that she had changed her schedule of going to the neighbor's house. I mean, the guy was working from home, so there was no way he was not at the house, and because my wife was still going there and came back earlier than before, I thought they had broken things off and came back to their senses because my wife started spending less time at the neighbor's house till she totally stopped. She became the wife I had fallen in love with, a natural and respectful Marine, but my guts were telling me that all that she was doing was an act. She started engaging in intimacy with me. Well, I had missed her, so I played along. I somehow forgot that she was cheating on me with the neighbor. I was a fool, right? I just wanted and needed my wife back home to me, but when we got here, she saw the opportunity to change and not change for the better. Our intimate moments were on fire. She even started introducing some new intimate moves in our bedroom. She was kind of wild, and to my surprise, I liked it. So one weekend we were spending time together, I had noticed the changes in her body. She was getting chubbier. She would choose what to eat and not eat, and she started hating my cologne. She asked me to change it. I got worried about that sudden change. It didn't come to me that she was pregnant, so I asked if she was okay. She told me that she would be okay once I had stopped using the cologne that I was using. I then told her that I would take her to the doctor. She just flipped and told me that she was fine. She didn't need any doctor. I knew my wife was like the back of my hand, so I knew that something was definitely up, because she got angry for no reason and was constantly vomiting. Was I that ignorant to see the symptoms of pregnancy in her? I took some days off at work to take care of my sick wife. She would tell me that she was coming down with flu or she needed to reflux her digestive system. She said she was suspecting that she had bile. I mean, if you had bile and came down with flu, she would have agreed to go to the doctor and get medications for it, right? One day when she was sleeping, I was trying to clean up the house, and it was the day of the garbage truck. So as I was getting rid of the garbage that was in our bedroom, I dropped something by mistake, and that something was actually a pregnancy test and a paper that was written safe abortion. I looked at my wife with a lot of disgust and disappointment. I knew that if she was pregnant with my child, she would have told me, and the pregnancy test was stating that she was 5 weeks, meaning she had gotten pregnant before she came back to her senses. I was angry at the fact that she had fooled me. She was going to plant the pregnancy on me and make me take responsibility for a child that was not mine because she had talked to me about her being ready to be a mother 2 weeks before I found out about the tests. I felt like the biggest fool because I was somehow happy at the fact that she was finally ready to carry my child, but she was already carrying one and it was not mine. I continued being the caring and loving husband, but I knew that I had to surprise both of them because the neighbor had made his wife a fool, and I was also made a fool by my wife. So one Wine Wednesday, I went to attend it. That day, my wife didn't make it, saying she was not feeling well, so I went alone. When I got there, the neighbor's wife welcomed me. We started talking about random things and told me that she was happy that she was finally pregnant after trying for almost 5 years with her husband. So the bastard had hit 2 birds with one stone, the nerve. I got livid to the point that I wanted to take at least a knife and cut off his private part because he didn't know how to keep it in his pants. Without acting rational and suspenseful, I told the wife that there was something that I had wanted to discuss with her. I had to lie and tell her that I needed her to write me a book about me and my achievements. I told her that it was time I take full responsibility and focus on my property business because it was also doing well, but I was still enjoying working at Prestige California Houses Agency. The neighbor's wife agreed to write me a book, so I asked her to come by to my office when she was free. Luckily, she had taken a leave of absence at her workplace, so she came to the office the following day. I asked her nicely that she shouldn't share what we were going to do with her husband because I didn't want my wife to know either, which she understood. So I woke up early and went to the office. The neighbor came to my house. He and my wife started arguing about something. As I was busy watching the neighbor's wife get in my office and apologize for being late due to traffic, I understood and we started working. I then gave her my laptop and asked her nicely not to panic and think of her unborn child. She got confused at first until she saw the video. What caught my attention was that the neighbor and my wife were no longer arguing, but they were doing the deed on my couches. I got pretty angry and didn't know what to do. I wanted to destroy something, but I had to act calm for the sake of my neighbor's wife and her unborn child. She was already crying a mess, and I felt bad because the guy was two-timing a good woman who did nothing but to love his cheating ass. Some guys are just ungrateful. I had to calm the neighbor's wife down and asked her to help me stop whatever that was happening in our houses. She was livid but managed to calm down after some time. We decided to head back home, so we rescheduled the meeting for another time. I told her that we would go to my house so we would find both of them. She agreed, and when we got there, I had a spare key with me, so I opened the door. As we got in the house, we found both the neighbor and my wife sleeping peacefully and cuddling on my couch. My heart dropped. I was mixed in emotions. I was angry, disappointed, hurt, and I don't know how I would put it, but I was not myself. I was brought back by the neighbor's wife, shouting at the neighbor. She started making noise and causing a scene. I understood her frustrations and hurt. She started hitting her husband with everything that she saw was in front of her. I looked at my wife with disappointed and hurt eyes. She couldn't even look at me in my eyes. I then went to my mini office to take out the pregnancy test that she had taken and took it with me where everyone was. I gave the neighbor the test and an abortion paper and told him to take responsibility for the mess he had created. But that didn't happen before I gave him a very mean punch. I didn't want to hit Maureen because of her condition, but I don't know what I would have done if she was not pregnant. I told her to pack her rags and get out of my house. She started apologizing and telling me that it was a mistake. She got tempted because I was not always home, so she got lonely, and one thing led to another. I didn't care about her explanation, but I wanted her gone, and gone far away from me before I committed a homicide. I then called my lawyer and asked her to draft divorce papers for me. The neighbor's wife was crying so much to a point that she started getting pains. I saw blood going down her legs. I knew there and then that we had a problem. So I decided to rush her to the hospital and told Maureen that I didn't want to see her when I came back and threatened to assault her and her boyfriend if anything happened to the neighbor's wife. When we got to the hospital, we were told that she came in late and she had already lost a child. I don't know why I felt hurt, but I was hurt and felt guilty for her pain and sorrow. When I went back to the neighbor's house, I found my wife, Maureen, and her affair chilling in the sitting room at our neighbor's house. The nerve they had to not even think of Aisha, neighbor's wife. As much as I was angry at Maureen, I was also hurt, disappointed, and humiliated. But you know what angers me the most was that I asked what was going on between her and the neighbor, and she bluntly lied to me and said it was nothing. So that evening when I found them both in the neighbor's house, I confronted them well more like I asked what was going on between them. And guess what? My lovely and disloyal wife rushed to answer the question that I had asked. She had tried to deny that she and the neighbor were busy playing houses with Aisha's husband. I laid out the photographs and texts in front of her, her eyes filled with guilt and shame. She had broken down, begging for forgiveness, promising it would never happen again. But I couldn't bring myself to believe her, couldn't bear the thought of being with someone who had deceived me in such a cruel way. The moment he caught them together, everything inside him snapped. I was angry at the fact that both of them were lying to my face and in front of the evidence. That enraged me to a point that I lunged at Mike, wife's AP neighbor, fists clenched and rage burning in my eyes. Mike's face paled as he realized what was happening, but it was too late. My anger consumed me, to a point that it was even overpowering any sense of reason or logic. I unleashed my fury on Mike, each blow fueled by the betrayal I felt from both my wife and our supposed friend and neighbor. Mike tried to defend himself, but I was too far gone to care. I wanted to hurt him, to make him pay for what he had done. "Please, John, stop," Mike cried out, tears streaming down his face. Imagine a grown-ass man crying in front of his AP or girlfriend or whatever they call each other. But I couldn't hear him over the pounding of my own heart and the rush of adrenaline in my veins. I didn't want to stop. I wanted to keep going until the pain inside me matched the pain I felt in that moment. That time, Maureen stood frozen in shock, watching as I was attacking her lover with a ferocity she had never seen before. She tried to intervene, but I pushed her away, my focus solely on Mike. Finally, when I could no longer lift my arms, I collapsed to the ground, breathing heavily and shaking with emotion. Mike lay on the floor, bloodied and bruised, whimpering in pain. The room was filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the sound of heavy breathing and the occasional sob. As my rage began to fade, I felt a different kind of emptiness wash over me. The adrenaline that had fueled my fury was now gone, leaving behind a sense of loss and betrayal that cut deeper than any physical pain ever could. I looked up at Maureen, tears streaming down her face, and realized that she was no longer a factor in my life, and I had to let her go because she was no longer the person I fell in love with. All I saw was a witch who doesn't respect herself and her wedding vows. She had made a terrible mistake, the kind of mistake that is not easy to forget. At that moment, I knew that I had to make a choice. I couldn't let the anger and betrayal consume me, tearing apart everything I had held dear. Or I could try to find a way to forgive, to move past the pain and focus on myself and my job. It's not like I was the first person to be cheated on. It's part of life, right? As I looked down at Mike, still laying on the floor, I knew that I had to find a way to let go of the rage that had consumed him because they didn't deserve my energy and my rage. I'm sorry, Mike whispered. His voice was barely audible. I just spat at him and clicked my tongue before heading out. I had even forgotten that I had gone there to fetch Aisha's changing clothes, so before I left the house, I told Mike that his wife had lost her child and she needed clothes to change. Then I told Maureen that she should come to the house and collect all her belongings because I no longer want to see her. She tried begging me, but I just left. 2 months later, I had filed for divorce and I was focusing more on my work. I'm not ready to move on or start any relationship because I now have trust and anger issues, but therapy has been my friend so slowly but surely I was getting there. I made sure that Maureen left with nothing but the clothes that she came wearing. I donated her clothes to charity and closed all her cards. My life has been okay, no complaints. I do miss Maureen at times, but moments may be gone, but memories are always there, right? I have one problem though, I do want to move on and go on dates, but the issues that I have are somehow stopping me. What should I do? Any advice?